Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we might give a kickstart of the webinar sessions. It's Queensland time at 12:02, and this session will finish at 1 o'clock. It will be recorded, and all the online participants right now, please feel free to put it in the chat box, and towards about at the 1:30 mark, we'll also open it for questions as well. And first of all, I would like to make an acknowledgement to the country that in the spirit of reconciliation, National Association of Women in Construction, we acknowledge the traditional custodian of country throughout Australia and their connection to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. Today, the webinar is held by National Association of Women in Construction in Queensland. The topic is career in construction, and we have 4 amazing panelists with us today. To start off with, I would like to introduce to you Jasmine. Hi, Jasmine.
Hi. Obviously, my name's Jasmine. I'm an undergraduate with Arcadis, so I'm in their project management team in Brisbane and Sydney. I actually didn't start in construction. I started in marketing. So as soon as I left school, I went into a double degree of marketing and journalism because I thought that's where I wanted to end up. I did some work experience with News Australia. So I was working as a marketing assistant in their marketing team. So for the Courier Mail, Quest newspapers and Brisbane News. And in that time, I kind of made the decision. I was like, that's more of a hobby than it is something that I wanted to pursue as a career. And I was always interested in construction and the built environment in high school, but unfortunately, we weren't educated enough on the different aspects in the industry and the different roles associated. So I never really continued it. I got an opportunity to work with Broad Spectrum, which is now Ventia, so their services maintenance company. And I was working in their procurement and submissions team. So I was still doing copywriting, similar to my marketing degree, but from there, I kind of found a love for construction and I got more involved. They put me out onto site and I ended up then joining their commercial team part-time while I was at uni, and I changed my degree to a Bachelor of Urban Development. So I majored in construction management. And yeah, it was great. I got so much experience alongside studying. And from there, I moved to a smaller consultancy client-side project management firm just to get more exposure with the client side. And now I've moved to Arcadis. I'm coming into my final year of study. So I want to make sure I get as much exposure as I can before I graduate. So yeah, I've only been with Arcadis for 3 months now, but I'm enjoying it. I'm on a whole range of projects. Unfortunately, I can't say because they're confidential, but yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Thank you so much, Jasmine.
Awesome.
It certainly is exciting, and one of a classic example of the stumble across with construction without any thoughts about the industry to begin with. We'll come back to you a bit later, Jasmine. And next up, we've got Nicole. Nicole is a director and also founder of a small building company, Bounded Construction. Nicole, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Nicole. I'm the director of a commercial interiors company called Bounded Constructions that I started with one of my uni friends and her brother. So there's 3 of us. We specialise in commercial interiors, so just the inside of a building, and in particular we work in the health and medical space. So we do a lot of radiology practices, laboratories, dentists, so a lot of things in like health and medical. So my role in the company is obviously as a director, which means that I do a lot of the stuff that comes with running the business as well as doing a role in the business. So running the business is you're making sure people are getting paid and make sure that you have insurances, like a lot of the administrative tasks. In the company itself, we have shared a lot of the roles between us as to, project management, contract administration. My role in the company is as the estimator and as the design manager. So my role in estimating is basically telling clients how much we think that the project's going to cost and coordinating all the elements that go into an estimate to be able to build up an overall price. I also have like a design management role, which our company specialises in design and construct style contracts. So that's where we will also help the client manage the design as well as help them build the project. And as a design manager, we don't actually do the designs ourselves. What we do is help the clients pick an architect that suits them, pick a structural engineer that has the competency to be able to do what it is that they want. So it's a lot of organising and understanding what clients need and picking the right people to help them facilitate that. I actually found it so amazing. Jasmine and I had a very similar start in our careers. I also, when I finished school, I studied marketing at QUT. I did a double degree of marketing and international business, and I worked as a marketing coordinator. And then I also worked for News, the News Corporation. So I worked for the Courier Mail in their advertising department. And then I went on to do a few other marketing coordination roles before I realised that a lot of the work that I was doing, I really liked tangible outcomes. I liked being able to see something at the end of all my hard work. And at the time, I had a friend that I knew in high school, and he was studying construction management after dropping out of engineering because he didn't like all the math. And he was telling me about what he was studying. I just thought it was so interesting. And I have had some experience with the construction industry. My dad's a builder, but I always thought that I didn't want to do what my dad did. But the more I learned about it and the more I heard about the course, the more I was like, I think that this is the career for me. So I went back to university at QUT and then enrolled in the construction management course. I then got a cadetship eventually and worked for a company called Main Race Constructions, where they did a lot of new build shopping centres. So I got to do some really cool stuff from the ground up before, continuing in my dad's footsteps of starting up a business and working for myself.
Thanks, Nicole. You've got a few photos as well. Would you like to?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so just give me a second. Let me do a screen share of the photos. There we go.
Cool.
So it's a fit out company. Yeah.
Yes. So particularly interiors. This is just an example of some of the projects that we work on. So we do a lot in radiology. So this is an MRI. Down here is an X-ray machine. In the top corner, we've got a dental chair. And then bottom left-hand corner is like a clinical trial facility where they were actually testing the COVID vaccines and doing all the clinical trials for that, which is really cool. And the middle ones are a big veterinary hospital. The next one we've got, these are just some photos of a project that we just had, kind of from the beginning to the end. So I just thought it was interesting. This project didn't take very long. It was only about 4 weeks. But you can see from the top left-hand all the way across the top row, just as the site kind of progresses, you see the walls go up and then you get to see the walls getting lined and then set and sanded and painted until you get this final product. And it's just so exciting to see it go from an empty shell to something that looks beautiful. And then this last one here are just some photos of how challenging it can be to get materials in and out, or in this case, this was us delivering a CT machine to a practice in West End, where it was up on the 2nd level. And these machines are really heavy. Like this one's about 2 tonne and it's quite big. So we were really lucky that the lift was big enough, but there were a few doorways that were pretty squeezy. So we had to pull all the outsides off it so that it would fit in. But at the end of it, we ended up getting it into the room. But the whole thing, before we even started, we thought about how we were going to get these machines in. It's just one of the parts of planning that we do when we're like trying to design and help clients getting into their final space.
Logistics seems to be key
Yeah,
in your work.
And a little bit of creativity.
Fantastic. I think that's the last slide.
That's the last one, yep.
Okay, so let me just stop sharing. And thanks so much, Nicole. So next up, we've got Jessica. Jessica is a contract administrator working with Magmets Australia, which is a subsidiary Japanese organization. And you've been in the industry for approximately 11 years or so, and you've been recently promoted to the management level. And congratulations on your promotion, Jessica.
Yes.
So I'll hand over to you, Jessica.
Thank you. Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm a contract administrator within my organisation. So Max Australia, we specialise in lightweight textile membrane structures. So for example, I don't know if you can see my background, but this is one of the structures that we put together. And to give you a bit of an example of the other types of structures that we work on, we're currently doing the Sydney Football Stadium roofing. We also put together bowling green canopies, car park shade structures, and a variety of bespoke projects as well. So we're a holistic organisation. So we have an in-house engineering and design team. And then also we go through the entirety of the installation of the works right through to the project finalisation. So sometimes we operate as a head contractor on our projects, sometimes we're subcontracting to a head builder. So, you know, with those types of activities comes a variety of different risk elements. So my role basically focuses on mitigating our risk from a contractual perspective. So I work across all functions within the business. So from pre-award of the project, I will assist with the sales team with the contract negotiation. So reviewing the contract, ensuring that all of the terms that are included in that are favourable to us, or at least mitigating our risk to some extent. And then going through the actual installation of the project. So we have the operational risks that are associated with that. So ensuring that we're contractually compliant with our obligations under our contracts, and then going through the closeout process of that as well. So that's somewhat of what I do in the organisation. I'm also focused primarily on improvement opportunities as well. So driving process improvements, ensuring that we're operating the most effectively within the business. So that obviously has its own attached challenges. Obviously working across the different functions within the business, I find that the biggest challenges are managing expectations across the business. So ensuring that I understand exactly what each department needs from my function, and sort of planning around that, managing my time, ensuring that everybody is getting you know, the right advice, and managing those contractual issues that arise from the different stakeholders within the business. So obviously our financial and our management side of things have their own expectations in comparison to the project managers who are actually on the ground managing the projects. They have their own you know, attached issues that they need to ensure that are managed as well. So managing variation requests, which can obviously changes the scope of the works that we may be constructing, but also ensuring that any associated costs that come with that are actually you know, recouped under the contract. And then obviously when it comes to the project closeout side of things, ensuring that any of the warranties or the obligations that we have under our contracts are administered. So I guess that gives you a bit of an overview of what I actually do within the business. But when it comes to my career journey, I actually started out a little bit, I guess, non-standard. So I got into the industry with no qualifications, no experience. I basically grew up in a small town that's about 6 hours west of here. So rural Queensland. And basically my town had two main industry sectors. So it was agriculture, we were a big cattle producer out there, and oil and gas. So I basically started my career in construction in the oil and gas industry as just a site administrator. I was actually the only girl on site for a number of years, so that had its own attached challenges. I worked FIFO for about, I'd say probably about 6 years in total across a number of different projects throughout Australia. And then I moved more so into the contractual administration side of things probably about 4 years ago. working on the Woolgoolga to Ballina highway upgrade. So that was with WSP and Lang O'Rourke, which was a New South Wales government project. And then I started with Max probably about 7 months ago. So it would have been earlier on this year, about February, March, I believe I started. And so since then, I've been running with a number of strategies within the business, trying to improve some of our internal processes and that type of thing. So.
Thank you, Jessica. It's quite a journey that you have been in, especially how you started on coming across, tossing between agricultural or oil and gas. Take your pick. And the lucky last, we have Terry. Terry has a slightly different background and the role he plays in the industry. So Terry is a Bundjalung man in the Southeast Queensland and Northern New South Wales. Terry is a owner of a small consulting company called Aboriginal Workforce Solution, and the company that Terry is with assists company to implement Aboriginal employment strategies. So we had a lot of conversation in this space about the strategies on diversity in terms of gender and also cultural diversity. So very exciting to have you here with us this afternoon, Terry. So hand it over to you, Terry, if you would like to tell us a bit more about yourself.
Thank you, Fiona. Hi, everyone. My name's Terry Bell. I'm a Bundjalung man from the southern end of the Gold Coast down to northern New South Wales. I'm speaking to you today on Gubbi Gubbi country, which is up in the Sunshine Coast. So I pay my custodial and cultural respects to all the Aboriginal people and all the lands that we meet on today. I started my working life as a mechanical plumber. Didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I got a trade. I knew I wanted to be a carpenter, but I started off being a plumber. So I worked in my trade, and what we did is install mechanical services and air conditionings in large multi-story buildings like motels and hospitals. And if we looked at one of Nicole's photos earlier, you saw all the ductwork up in the ceiling. So we would pipe all the chilled water and steam and all that to the air conditioning buildings, and they'd go up through rises through the centre of the building and branch out on ceilings and feed all air conditioning units in the ceiling, and then the units would feed air into your room. So it's a bit of a convoluted process, but it does work pretty well. So I worked in that industry from when I left school at 18 to I was about 30. And I worked in telecommunications for Telstra for 9 years, and was made redundant. I went back to my trade and had a car accident. So I was working for myself and someone ran in the back of me. Well, 3 people ran in the back of me. So I ended up going to university as a mature age student, and I have been sort of studying ever since. I've worked in the public sector, in the state and Commonwealth governments. I've worked in mining and oil and gas and construction. One of the big projects that I worked in Aboriginal employment was we did it was called Cape Lambert Port B expansion. It was a $2.2 billion project to handle all the extra iron ore that was being shipped overseas. And we built a jetty. I worked for a company called John Holland, and we built a jetty that went 1.5 kilometres out to sea. It was about 4 lanes wide, and it could fill up 2 iron ore carriers on either side of the jetty at once. So it was a massive project. So that was quite exciting. Everything was so big. I've never seen anything so large. So that was quite exciting. So I worked in the employment space there. I'm currently doing some research with BHP on Aboriginal career progression. And I sit on a hospital board up here on the Sunshine Coast, which is the Sunshine Coast Health and Hospital Board. And to improve their Aboriginal employment outcomes, we have a budget of about $1.3 billion, and we employ over 7,000 people. So Part of our commitment to reconciliation, or the government, is we've got to employ 3% of our staff are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, which is not being achieved as yet, but I'm working with the board and the staff to try and improve outcomes. So you may see on Queensland Health, have got a whole health and health equity strategy, which is to raise the employment levels of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people right across Queensland Health. But my business, Aboriginal Workforce Solutions, I can go into companies of any size and sort of help them develop a strategy that suits their needs and their budget and their goals. And there's some learnings there, and but I'm really interested in assisting young people and to achieve their career aspirations. So to anyone who's listening, young people, always have a plan of what you want to do with your career. And the ladies you were listening to earlier, they started off, a few of them started off doing things they thought of, but they changed, which is great. You know, you don't want to keep doing something that you don't like doing. So follow your dreams and have a bit of a plan to achieve your goals and your dreams. So that's all I can say. So thanks, Fiona.
So true, Terry. So true. Career planning. Who started thinking about career when you were in high school? Any one of you?
Yeah, and I knew that I didn't know what I wanted to do, which is why I did business at uni. I had no idea.
So, like thinking back your young self. I mean, you're also young anyway. When you are, well, think you're at high school, you know you need to do something else after high school. Whether you want to go into do a gap year, or whether you want to go and pick up a trade or at a TAFE or at university, what was it that you were thinking? Are you thinking about a particular subject, or are you thinking about where you want to be? So if we think about in the career planning aspect to help out the young ones, it's a big question. It's a big question mark. I don't know how to tackle this issue. What would be the advice, or how you did it?
I think that when it came to high school, I thought about what I liked and what I thought I might want to do. And I had a look at, I knew that I always liked studying, so I was happy to go to university. But I did have a lot of friends that looked at other options. But I chose that I wanted to go to university because I liked to study. I wasn't sure what course I wanted to do, but I knew that I liked the idea of business. I liked arts. I liked things where I could do things with my hands. I liked science, but I wasn't very good at it, and I didn't really want to do anything that had mathematics in it. So when I was choosing, I chose subjects based on things that I knew that I would enjoy, but also ones that would help with some of the courses that I was looking at that I wanted to enroll in. So I knew that I wasn't going to, like, I don't know what they call it now, if it is Maths C, but I knew I would never be able to do Maths C. And so some of the science courses were taken off the table, and engineering was a bit of a tricky one. And I tried to do Maths B, but I just couldn't do it. So I made a few strategic changes, but I had a nice balance of subjects that I thought would get me into the courses that I like the look of, as well as ones that I would enjoy and wanted to work hard in.
Mm-hmm. How about yourself, Jessica? I mean, I know you did not start with go into the study pathway. So how do you make your selection?
So I started my career off in just general administration with a bit of hospitality background. So I entered the construction industry. I decided that it was something that I wanted to do. As I mentioned, oil and gas was quite a big industry from the town that I grew up in. So there wasn't a great deal of other opportunities within the community that I could see a clear career path in. So oil and gas was something that I wanted to get into, but it was quite a difficult industry to break into with no experience and no qualifications. So I was pretty fortunate in the sense that there was a massive mining boom that happened. And so construction was rampant in the area. And when you have such a high demand and a limited supply of workers, I managed to score a position just as a site administrator. From that, it actually turned out that the company that I was working for, their understanding of what the role pertained to be was actually completely different to what the client had wanted from that particular position. So I was basically thrown in the deep end and had to either sink or swim. So I had a huge learning curve on the actual job. I had to learn a lot about what actually goes into the construction side of things. So a lot of technical on-site learning happened from that position, which basically built the foundations for my career going forward.
Adding on that, Jessica, not everyone, unless work on the job, know what a site administrator, contract administrator is. Could you tell us a little bit more what the entail? Is it a lot just to do with paperwork? What do you actually need to do?
So my role was slightly different from a standard site administrator. So I was a quality administrator. So basically, when you're building any product or structure, you need a level of quality administration to ensure that you're building it in compliance with the specifications, with the engineering requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to go through a number of checks to ensure that everything is done correctly. For example, when you're building a concrete slab, to ensure that the slab meets the purpose, quite often you need to have a certain strength. The concrete needs to meet certain specifications. It has to have a certain life time frame. So my job is to go through the different elements of that construction and to, I don't want to say tick and flick, but to ensure that what we are doing is actually as per the documents and as per the engineer's design. So it'll be checking off a number of different things, ensuring that our paperwork is in order so that when it comes to the finished product and we're handing it over to our client, all of the quality administration documents, all of the engineering compliances, all of the checks that are required to ensure that the structure isn't going to collapse at any given moment are compiled, basically. So it was putting together all of that information, but it did require a degree of technical understanding as to what was actually occurring on site. So that I entered into without any knowledge whatsoever, but I was really fortunate in the fact that I was surrounded by a number of highly skilled and highly qualified engineers who basically took me under their wing and mentored me through that process. So yeah, they were great in the sense that they taught me the basics, basically.
So looking at that, what is needed though? So do you need to do a lot of the engineering type of maths calculation, or is it more to do in the finance side? What are the particular technical skill set that is needed in order to, sorry about that, in order for, to do your job?
Yeah, so my roles changed quite a lot from that particular position, but just to reflect on that role, basically what I needed to understand is what was actually being built. So to take it back to this concrete slab that was being built, I would need to know what it was that I was looking at to be able to identify if it wasn't compliant with the specifications. So for a particular slab, there needs to be what they call clearance. So it's ensuring that the reinforcing steel within the structure basically meets the clearance requirement. So if it's 50 mil, that means that you have concrete over 50 mil. So I'd be measuring, ensuring that things are correct, and then basically filling out the paperwork to say, yes, I've inspected this, and yes, it meets the specification. If there's a particular strength of concrete that's required, it's checking that requirement. When they actually deliver the concrete to site, they do what they call a slump test. So it's ensuring that there's not too much water within the concrete that can reduce its lifespan or its strength level. So yeah, it's basically going through those types of things and understanding what it is. So basically within the specification, it will specify the strength of concrete that you need. So my job is to check that what's actually being delivered on site matches what we said within the engineer's design.
Okay, thanks, Thanks, Jessica. And Jasmine, you kind of sitting with the client side. So now that Jessica has handed over what the bits and pieces are from the contractor onto you, so how do you find the job that you're doing, and what sort of skill sets is required to do your job?
So basically, client side project management, you have a client that wants this project and wants this, it could be a building that's built, or they want a new fit out or whatever that may be. And a lot of the time they don't have the knowledge and the experience to manage a project from start to finish. So that's kind of where we come in and we support them. We represent the client and we liaise with all of the different stakeholders. We manage all of the different stakeholders, and we work with them to oversee the project from start to finish. So I think for us, especially client side, you need to have obviously the background construction knowledge, but a lot of it is dealing with risk management and dealing with stakeholder management and those communications. Few projects that I'm working on at the moment, there's about over 100 different stakeholders that are involved, which is a little bit overwhelming, but it definitely comes as a challenge. But if you can communicate effectively, that's essentially what we're doing. We're passing information on to one person to another person. So yeah. Okay, and looking at it, you are a young woman in this industry, and all our panelists has also been pointing out this is still quite male dominant. So have you encountered any gender specific challenge or obstacle so far in your career, Jasmine? I have in a few of my previous roles, but I think I went into the industry knowing that it was male dominated. And I mean, even in my degree now that I'm studying, there is the ratio male to female. There is quite a difference. But I would say now there's definitely been a change, and there's a lot more women entering the industry, which is amazing. And I think things like this is definitely driving women to enter. But yeah, I have, but I think it makes you stronger. And at the end of the day, you deal with a whole different range of personalities and different people. And yeah. And Nicole, looking into it, do you find you need to be a particular type of person to work in the construction industry?
I think it depends on the role that you want to have in the industry, because I think that there are a lot of opportunities in different roles that suit all sorts of personalities. I think that just to kind of build on what Jasmine was saying, that when I did the course, there wasn't that many women that were doing it. But I think a large part of it is that, like, I went to an all-girls school. It was definitely not something that they spoke about as a career option. And when you think about working in the construction industry, a lot of the time you think about physically doing labour. And, you know, you don't have to have a manual labour job. They're in a business like my own, and any of the kind of, like maybe Arcadis as well, there are a lot of roles for project managers, which the sort of person that would suit is someone that's very organised and very good at communication. You can have a contract administrator, which is a role that would suit someone that is like very detail oriented, maybe likes like writing, might like contracts and legal things, likes to get into the detail of things. You can have an estimator, which is, you know, someone who might like accounting or quantity surveying, like that really likes numbers or like solving problems with numbers. And, you know, a lot of the time it's a very solo role, so you don't have to have as much of a communication skill as project management. And then there's site management as well, which is, again, even though it's on a job site, you don't have to physically perform lots of physical labour. You're there to manage people. So you need to have a skill set where you're a good communicator. You need to have a little bit of technical knowledge, but you can, like, the most important thing is that you ask questions and you communicate with people and you give guidance and help solve problems. So I think in construction that it doesn't really matter what your personality type is. I think there's a role that will suit someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so looking into it, coming to you, Terry, what are some of the strategies that we can harness cultural and gender diversity? $1 million question, Terry, unmute. You're on mute, Terry.
Sorry, Fiona. I'd just like to take a step back, and for young people, if they don't know what to do with the career, and don't worry about that, because a lot of people don't know what they want to do. But from an Aboriginal perspective, it all depends if you live rurally or in the city or wherever. So some of the advice I give to young people is, do you want to work inside or do you want to work outside? So do you want to be a blue collar worker or a white collar worker? Do you want to work in your homes, your hometown or your home city, or are you prepared to go away? Do you want to be an employee or an employer? Do you want to work for yourself, or do you want to just be a worker? So these are some of the things, and you see what's available wherever you live, because culturally, Aboriginal people like staying with their family. We're members of a collectivist society, so family is very important to us. So it's a bit of toing and froing from there, and then you can narrow down your focus of, that target of where you want to go, and then you look at your universities and you try things. And some of the material I've read is to get ahead, don't be afraid to have a go at something. If someone offers you the job, you'll be all right at this, have a go. Don't say no, just try it. And don't be afraid of failure, because that's how you learn. So in addition to what the ladies have spoken about with it's a bit of trial and tribulation, and think things through. Don't do anything that's not safe, but once you're there, be prepared to have a go at anything. Understand where you want to go, and even if you try something and you don't like it, well, at least you've eliminated that part of your life. Well, I'm not going back to that. I didn't want to be a crane operator or a concreter. I'd rather be a carpenter. So steer yourself towards where the carpenter's working and ask for an opportunity, because opportunities don't drop in your lap very often. So you've got to go out and find it. So you've got to be proactive, not reactive. So go out and make things happen. So, yeah. So,
how do you ask for an opportunity, Terry?
Well, you narrow down your risks, Fiona. If you're working on a building site, go up to a carpenter. So, mate, I want to have a go. I've always wanted to be. But what I would do now, I'd have tools. I'd look as though I wanted to have work. I would be prepared. I'd have a ute, or I'd have a set of tools, and you just keep turning up, mate. Give me a go for a week. I'll work for you for free to get going, because that's an investment into your future. So a week out of your time, although you're not getting paid, you've got to pick your mark and narrow down the risks to you and do it safely. But do you want to do what the ladies said? Do you want to do fit outs inside, or do you want to do structural work, or do you want to do frames or put roofs on, or do you want to do form work? So it's sort of being a little bit more specific. So if you can narrow your target down and go looking for those niche little areas you want, you're more likely to have a go. And even if you don't get exactly where you want to be, it's part of the process. So get started, get in, finish that, and then steer yourself over. So as I said earlier, have a plan, get into the game, and then narrow it down. But because you've got to start somewhere, and not many people start as CEOs in companies. They've got to work their way through. And then, as you've seen some of the ladies, they work for themselves. So they had a bit of a plan. I want to do this. And we're usually influenced by our parents. If you listen to some, I think Nicole was influenced by her dad, and I was influenced by my dad. I thought it was pretty cool, going to work in a trade in a pair of King G shorts and boots. And 20 years later, I didn't think so. But it was a start. So it gave me a foundation to the career that I'm doing now. So your career, nothing stays the same. Life doesn't stay the same. Good times don't stay the same forever. Bad times don't stay the same. And your career doesn't. So you've got to make, you're the catalyst to make things happen.
And look, Terry, you start off as a plumber, and now you're something quite different, looking into, helping especially young people, Aboriginal young people into, and also providing strategic advice to multi-million, billion-dollar company.
Yeah, well, if I got my wish to be a carpenter, I might be in the place that I am now, but I didn't get that wish, so you just carry on.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Terry. And with Jessica, what are some of the biggest challenge that you have faced throughout your work in construction?
As I mentioned earlier, I was working FIFO in oil and gas for quite some time. So that in itself is quite a challenging environment to be in. So you're working and living away from home for quite an extended period. One of the toughest rosters that I was working on was working 21 days straight. And then you'd have 1 week off and you'd be working 12-hour days every day. So the work was quite difficult, but it was also quite rewarding as well. So I learned a lot from that experience. But the fact that I was working and living in the middle of nowhere, and also, you know, living and working with the same people every day, that has its own challenges attached as well. You can't sort of go home and unwind at the end of the day. And then also being in that sort of environment as a female, it did have its own challenges. And as I think Nicole touched on earlier, what I think is one of the most personality traits, I guess you could say, as a female within the industry is that you have to be prepared to be assertive and to put your point across and ensure people actually listen to what you have to say. So one of the challenges I've had throughout my career is some situations, it doesn't happen very often, it is few and far between, but I have had to be more assertive than I normally would have to be taken seriously.
And is there certain things that you have done in a situation that you felt like you've been talked down to? So what do you do?
Absolutely. There's always people, doesn't matter where you go, that are going to behave in that manner. So I've always had the personality type where I don't take anything too personally. And a lot of the time it's just because they're trying to get their job done. And it may be that, you know, they think that the way that they're doing things is the best way to do it. So I've found that being prepared to talk things through really, really does help, trying to get your point across and explain why it is that you think something can be done differently. Always remaining calm under stressful situations like that. Sometimes, especially during contract negotiations, for example, some people can become quite hot-headed and to get quite invested in what it is that they're talking about. So I've always found that if I remain calm and collected in those types of situations, it does tend to diffuse the tension within the room and help us get to, you know, a reasonable outcome basically at the end of the day.
Thanks, Jessica. And I just want to do a call out to the live participant and live attendees. If anyone would like to ask any questions to our panelists or make any comments, just feel free to use the Q&A box or raise your hand, unmute yourself and talk away. And coming to you, Jasmine, looking at you're quite early stage in your career in this space. What is the first most memorable moment on your job?
That's a tough one. For me, I would probably say the most memorable part was I got to work on a project for QUT, and it was for the refurbishment and new fit out of their Oodgeroo unit. So I am actually part of the Oodgeroo unit as well. So to be on that project representing the client, to see that from early design stages all the way through to practical completion was an amazing experience. And then to see my friends and myself utilising that space after was pretty cool. So yeah. And to say that I've been involved in that project, some people are like, oh, that's such a lovely space. And I'm like, yeah, I worked on that. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
And I hear a lot of the strong sense of belonging that coming through when you're working in this industry. Terry, you put your hand up.
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate what Jessica said to young people about being assertive. And I felt that if there's one thing I would change when I was growing up as an Aboriginal young person, it would be to be more assertive and stand your ground, because you'll bump into a few issues along the way as women and people in the diversity sector usually do. Australia is a very white Anglo-Saxon nation, but to be assertive, don't be afraid of losing jobs, but I just can't reiterate enough to be assertive and do it in the the right way and respond. You know, it's I don't like an example being is I don't like the way you've explained it. I don't think that is an appropriate way to talk to me. I find it offensive, and always don't get take the emotion out of it and just be talk straight to. Yeah, I've forgotten what I was going to say, but if people get the gist of what I've tried to say, take the emotion out of it and treat the issue, not the emotion.
Absolutely.
So just don't take it personally. And that's one of the things that we talk about on giving and receiving feedback as well. So pack it.
Have a look at the person who's giving you a bit of grief and try and understand why or where. Are they just not a nice person, or is it an issue? Are they under pressure? So, you know, have a look in their shoes, but yeah, be assertive. Some things just aren't appropriate to be done. So yeah, don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. So
definitely. And sometimes I think in our industry, people they get set in habits and act in a certain way that they don't even realize that they're doing it. I know that when I used to work with my dad on the job sites, if someone, you know, wasn't pulling their weight or whatever, he'd be like, oh, look at him, he's being such a girl. And then he's looked at me and he's gone, it's not really appropriate that I say that, is it? I'm like, no, it's not, Dad. And, you know, sometimes you don't realize what you're saying. And he's never said it again because it just took that realization. And you know, if I were to say something, so you can't say that, he didn't realize that, you know, that's some of the stuff that you just can't say. So, yeah, I think it's important to pull people up and say that it's bothered you, because sometimes they don't realize what they've done and they do need to have a look at it themselves.
That is so true. A lot of the time it's just become a habit, and then hitting on a crowd, and you just make those conversations, makes those jokes as well. Just coming back to you for a bit more, Jasmine, because you did enter through Career Tracker as an exposure. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and your experience in that space?
Yeah, so Career Trackers is a not-for-profit organisation that provides paid internships to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students throughout their university degree. So they'll be able to complete a 3-month rotation paid in the university summer, and then another rotation in the winter. So you do have to be full-time study, and you do have to be meeting a certain GPA requirement, but they provide you, they try their best to align you with your degree to a partner, a corporate partner, and then you'll be able to undertake, the whole purpose is to undertake rotations all throughout your degree to then hopefully go into their graduate program or something similar. But yeah, so I started through there, and that's how I kind of entered into News Corp and then with Ventia. But yeah, I'm still a part of the program, but I've kind of gone off after being offered permanent positions. So yeah.
There's a multiple avenue in order to try before you buy, a bit like that. And for those studying at school, there is the VET course that they can jump in and do. There is the work experience, and with the government funding on a lot of the school projects, there is almost always a construction site close by to a school that can always just have a chat with a teacher, career counselor. Is that something that they can engage with the local builder and just to find out a bit more, or even for a site visit? That's something like Nicole, Jasmine and Jessica, you often will be so keen just to show the school, the teachers, the community, what actually goes on behind the scene. So coming back on looking at about improving the workforce diversity and culture in construction, suggestion coming from you, Terry?
A way to improve it? Well, I think it's pretty big to sort of say right across the industry, but I'd like to think that people just try and control what they can control, and that's themselves, and have a plan and know where you want to go and how you're going to get there. And, you know, when you're happy and you're achieving outcomes in your career, or you're doing what you like doing, you know, it's not as hard. So always look to improve yourself and just keep moving, because if nothing changes, does it? So, you know, as we say, life's just evolving all the time. So keep looking forward. You know, you don't have to have everything laid out in front of you, but just set a course to where you want to go. If you're a builder, you might want to be a project builder, or you might want to work on project management and work on bigger projects all around the world. So set yourself up to pursue that and to follow that. And if you find you don't like it, don't be afraid to take a few steps back before you go forward again. So that's the only advice I had, because, you know, your dream run, your perfect career is just keeping going to the top, but it doesn't happen for everyone. So take the setbacks in your stride and just see it as a bit of a break, and then reset yourself and then go again.
Thanks, Terry. And Jessica, with your company, is there like a diversity and inclusion policy or guidance around in that space?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started here about 9 months ago, there was only a couple of women actually employed by my organisation. And since then, we've introduced a number of new team members. So, you know, even just looking at the office as it is now, you know, there's a significant increase in that diversity across our team. And I guess from that perspective, it's not always intentional. So it is a matter of looking at the types of skills that we need and then seeking out those types of skill sets across different types of positions and looking for people that may not necessarily have the qualification or the background in that sector, but who have the potential. So we recently brought on board a project administrator to work as part of my team, and she is green in the construction industry. So she's never worked in this space before, but it was clear that she had the potential to be able to use her skill base in this sector.
Right. And Nicole, your company, you've got 2 female founders and a male founders, which is quite unique.
Yeah. Majority female workforce for a construction company.
That's exactly. So it's a relatively more local company. Is there a piece around the diversity and inclusion space that your company try to adhere to as well?
I think, and like that's really topical because we are very small at the moment. We don't have any employees yet, but it is something that I've been thinking about as we grow. How do we make sure that we are giving everyone a go and being like fair and equitable when we are hiring people? And I think that like just to kind of build on what everyone's been saying is that it does. You won't know everything there is to know before you go into a job, and you do learn a lot of the technical aspects of construction when you're doing a job. So it's important to have the foundation skills like being a good communicator or being a good problem solver or whatever the role requires first, and then you can build up your technical knowledge after. So like having the right tools, as Terry was saying, and then you like learn how to use those tools when you're in the job. So that being said, a lot of when I've been trying to give like work experience opportunities to people, because we're not at an opportunity, we're not at the point where we can hire people yet, I am giving a go to people that might never have worked in the industry before. So I had a young woman that was working with me. She's not young, but she was a mum who was a hairdresser, but wanted to be a project manager and had all the right skills because she'd owned her own business and everything. And just because she wasn't working in construction doesn't mean that she wasn't going to be able to do the job. And she was very good. And so I think, and that's something that I wish that I'd been offered when I went into the industry, because I was a marketing and advertising account manager. And when I went to go and apply for all the cadet roles, no one would give one to me because I didn't have the right sort of background. And so I took an office administration job for a construction company, and I told them that I would take the job. but I wanted to still do the extra work that the cadets were doing, and that I would work longer. It didn't matter. Like, they didn't have to pay me any extra for it anyway. I just wanted the opportunity to give it a go. And then that's how I kind of got into the industry. And so when we're hiring for our company, I'll definitely be looking more closely at people based on the skills that they have for the potential to be really good at the role. They don't have to have like 10 years experience as a project manager or 5 years experience as an estimator, especially for junior roles. It's super frustrating if you're trying to get a job and someone asks you for, if it's like an entry-level role and they want you to have 1 to 2 years experience, you're like, well, how am I going to get the experience for a junior role if I can't get the junior role?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is frustrating.
Yeah.
And
so,
yeah, thanks, Nico. And I'm cautious with time. We only got a few more minutes left for this webinar. I would like to wrap up with a final question for each of you. Slightly rephrase it this time. So if you can think back to your young self, if there is this support or piece of advice you would have liked to receive from your teacher or from your those who can influence you, what would you have liked to get?
For me personally, coming from a small town, I didn't receive any guidance at school. And I also didn't receive guidance from my parents. None of my parents have actually studied a university degree before. So for me, having the different options actually laid out and explained, and having that bit of information that it doesn't matter if you don't want, or if you decide halfway through a degree that it's not what you're wanting to do, the fact that you can switch from degree to another degree whilst you're at school, and that you can do RPL and all of that as part of your degree to get into another course if you're not enjoying what you're doing, that would have definitely been beneficial for me. So I always did really well at school. I got a great IOP, but going to university just wasn't on the cards for me. It wasn't an option. So having that guidance and having that explanation and understanding of, okay, you may not have everything laid out of what you want to do in life, but you do need to have some form of plan as to what sort of career you're wanting to aspire to and what you need to do to be able to get there. So that career planning was never, it was just never something that I was exposed to. So I kind of had to figure it out on my own. I started studying when I was 24, so I did part-time online study. So if I had that sort of guidance when I was at school, I probably would have went straight from school into university.
Thanks, Jessica. Jasmine, how about you?
I would definitely say my younger self, like, step outside of your comfort zone, because I think I was like Nicole, I went to an all-girls school. But especially when we were going through the whole career planning process, it was like, oh, you're creative, you're good at this. So just, let's just do marketing, journalism. You have really good communication skills. This is what you should do. But I was always interested in the built environment, but we never got educated on it. And I think for me, doing something I was comfortable with was fine, but it's not challenging. You want to pursue a career that's challenging for you. And I think for me, then eventually taking that step and taking that leap and being like, yeah, I'm going to change my degree. I was so indecisive for probably half of the year, deciding whether I was going to change or not, because I felt like there was that shame there of switching my degree, and not seeing that one through. But eventually I got the courage to just do it. And I mean, it's been the best decision. But yeah, I would definitely say, I know there's a lot of people that see shame in, changing your career path or whatever. And I think, it's the beauty of it all, is being able to chop and change. And, as you get older and as you mature, you have different interests, and you find that you might be better at something that you never thought that you were ever really good at. So yeah, I think definitely have the ability to step outside your comfort zone and just take the risk.
Thanks. And Nicole, how about you?
I think we're all on the same theme, which is definitely, it's important to have a plan of what you want. It doesn't mean that that's the plan that you have to pick for the next 60 years of your life. It's just, you need to have somewhere to aim for and to start where you want to learn skills and everything. And you can you can change. But I think also going back to what we were talking about being assertive, that was probably a big thing for me, is that people can't help you if you don't know what to ask them to help you with. And there have been a lot of things in my career where I was frustrated because I wasn't progressing, but it's because I wasn't telling people where I wanted to be and how, and asking them to help me get to where I wanted to be. And I think that if I'd been more clear with that, I think there are a lot of people that really wanted to support me in my career and wanted me to succeed, but it's very hard for them to give you help if they don't know where you're going.
Thanks, Nicole. Terry, how about you? A piece of advice?
I would start looking before you leave school. Go and get some work experience during the holidays, or start looking on dabbling in the areas you want to. If you want to work outside in a trade, try a number of different trades. Concreting one holiday, bricklaying another, carpentry another. And just on what Yasmin was saying, your career is your career. There's no shame in changing. It's not a race to compete against somebody else. It's what you want to do. So understand that it's what you want to do, but once you start it, always try to finish it, because if you start changing, oh, that's not for me, and don't finish, you'll find you'll do that all through your life. So I'm gonna, but I didn't. So I would say, if you're going to start something or you're going to change your degree, make sure you finish whatever you change to, and be confident. And, from people from diverse backgrounds, it's not always being confident. You don't have to be arrogant, but be confident in your own ability and just say, well, yeah, I think I'm a pretty good person. You've got a lot to offer. And what the girls have, Nicole said, when she turned up to work and she said, I want to do this. I'll give you something for nothing. And immediately an employer's going, I'll hang on to this one because she wants to work and she wants to get ahead and she's driven and she's got a plan. So as long as you've got a basic idea to start with, and then the more experience you'll get, the picture will get clearer of where you want to end up. So as you move along, that's what I'd say.
Thanks, Terry. So a few of the takeaways that I've got from today, it's first, work out what actually really inspires you in what you want to do, whether it's the industry or whether it's a particular type of job that you want to do, whether it's on the tools or not. Career planning, all of you touched on about career planning, and also to ask the question, to work out what you want to ask the question. Try, just go for it and then try it, and don't be afraid to speak up and change. And we want to get some help in that space as well when it comes to career planning or also communicating on wanting to change. So and NAWIC, for example, is one of the organizations. It's a not-for-profit organization, and we go in to talk to schools, to the high school students, to the teachers about the different types of career and what actually happened in the construction side through programs such as the in-school experience. And we've also got the speed careering and try trade as well. And it is 1:05, 5 minutes past our scheduled time. And I would like to thank you once again, our fantastic panelists, Terry, Jessica, Jasmine, and also Nicole. Thank you for your time, and thank you all for being part of it.
Thank
and have
you.
a good day.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
No questions from the...
No, yeah, they're all quietly listening. All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
See ya.
Okay.
Bye.